Please come to order. Councilor Crittenden, will you please lead us in an invocation?
All right. Father, coming to you today, thanking you for all you've given us, Father. We had a good weekend around my hometown, and I think everybody was safe, so thank you for that. Thank you for the weather that we have. It's a pretty morning. Go with us now, Father. Just help us do the work of the people. And, you know, we all have our faults and different things, Father, but I think everybody at these tables are here for the right reason. And just help us, like I say, do this business the way you'd want us to. I always want to be sure to thank you for Jesus and his name. Amen.
Terry Bakershaw,
Ani?
Mike Robbins,
Here.
Bill England,
Honey.
Keith Johnston,
Here.
Harley Buzzer,
Here.
Joe Burr, Sean Crittenden,
Ani.
Brandon Duncan,
Honey.
Wanda Hatfield,
Here.
Rex Gordon,
Here.
Dick Lay,
Honey.
Mike Shambaugh,
Here.
Leo Smith,
Here.
Denise Taylor,
Here.
Victoria Vesquez,
Honey.
David Walkingstick, Brian Warren.
Honey.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Now for approval of our minutes, the regular session, April the 15th. All those in favor of approving our minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approval to approve our public health minutes. Take a motion.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, first report, George. George, what's the correct pronunciation of your last name? Vallier. Vallier. I bet I've called it Valerie a million times.
It has been said a lot of different ways.
Well, good afternoon, George. How are you?
I'm good. You have my report there in your packet. You see, visits were down just a tiny bit. Dental visits were up. Admissions and newborns were down. Audiology saw 120 patients last month, or for the month of March. Dental, like it was on the first page, it had 854. Lab had 3,100 patients come through. Pharmacy filled 28,185 outpatient prescriptions and mailed almost 3,000 prescriptions. Physical therapy had 194 patient encounters, 24 of those were new, and then radiology had 2,439 patient encounters for the month of March. Any questions?
Counselor Austin?
Yes, George, on your outpatient visits, I'm just trying to make sure I understand this correct. We have, you have the number 26,005. Beside there, you have 120717 with CN above that. Explain that.
We had a total of 26,000 visits, but 12,000 of those were Cherokee Nation citizens.
Well,
6,000 were Cherokee Nation citizens, but those 6,000 had 12,000 visits for Cherokees.
okay. And so the 26,000 is your total. Of that, a little less than half is Cherokee Nation visits. And of that, half, that's basically 2 visits per patient to get to that number. Okay, so you serve more non-Cherokees than Cherokees in your facility, based on that?
Well, just
For that month.
this month, it was about that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Taylor?
George, you mentioned audiology, 120 patients, something to that effect. I don't actually see that.
It's on I didn't put it, I haven't put it
Okay,
on,
and that has nothing to do with my question. Is that normal? Is that full capacity? Is that in-house, or are we sending them out? I just want a little more information.
that's full capacity there. All of those referrals are coming from in-house. That's
Do
all.
you have an audiologist?
Yes,
Okay, so you do have one, and
Yes.
they're seeing as many patients as they
yes.
can
We
see
have
all day long.
one audiologist and one technician.
Okay, very good, thank you, that's all I have.
Counselor Lade?
Thank you, Madam Chair. George, is there ever a time when you would refuse or turn down an ambulance, a person being brought in by ambulance to you all? And if so, would it be because you don't have a person on staff to handle it or something of that?
The only time that we've ever done that is, we've had some construction going on, and we've had, like, the water turned off for the backup generators when we were replacing that. And we had someone, a surgery patient or a woman in labor, we would divert them to another hospital because we wouldn't want to start a surgical procedure or something without backup generator or water or something along that nature. Under normal conditions, no.
Thank you.
If there is one, please let me know and let me get that addressed. Let me see what happened.
Yes, sir.
George, on the number of Cherokees used in Claremore Indian Hospital, I've been watching these numbers, and this number is low this month because it usually runs about 50%, if I'm correct. Do you recall?
I think you're
Yeah,
Correct.
I think I'd ask you to put these numbers on
Yes,
for
you did.
Cherokee patients, and I've been monitoring those numbers, and it usually runs about 50%. The other thing is on your revenue. I see a 23.7% increase
yes.
over the previous years, and what do you attribute that to? Is it just the billing?
Billing, we're actually seeing better quality business, better documentation.
Okay.
I would attribute most of that to the better documentation and better coding.
And then you said a while ago, the audiology, that you have one provider and one tech that does?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
When do you expect your ER to be completed?
End of June was the last, excuse me, was the last estimated date that I heard a couple weeks ago. We'll see if they can stick to that.
That'll be nice. Any other questions? Yes, Counselor Dobbins.
George, get back to your documentation. Do the providers do the documentation, or do you have support personnel follow up?
No, we don't have any scribes or anything like that. The docs go in and do their own.
So the docs have to do all that on their own?
Now, our ER docs, they use Dragon software, so they just dictate into the system, and it'll type it out for them. But other than that, the docs still have to do it themselves.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you so much,
Thank
George.
you.
We appreciate it. Dr. Steve Jones.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Dr. Jones. Good afternoon.
Well, I will start off by referencing your report that you have. Just some highlights from it. Number one, the referral rate has gone up this month from what it was last. I think it was 96.5 last time. It's 97.1. All the ambulatory care visits are up. The revenue is up. And then if you look over on the last page, I think Councilor Buzzard, you had asked about us breaking down by service unit and by facility on veterans, and that should give you all that information that you were asking for. Just notice that down the bottom on each facility, those bar graphs are not equal amounts because some of them see a lot more patients than others. So where you see one, for example, at Hastings, 0 to 4,000, you go to Stillwell, it's 0 to 1,000, so don't let the bars fool you a little bit there. Look at the values on those bar graphs, okay? There are a couple of things that I want to bring up that I'm going to have Dr. Montgomery come up and join me on, a couple of items that, on an update on the lab recall we talked about last time, and then on a drug recall. So I'll let him talk to that if that's okay. All right. Montgomery.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Dr. Montgomery.
You may recall at the last meeting, there was a issue with one of the tests that was done on many of our tribal citizens. It had to do with a thyroid antibody, and letters went out to the affected patients. We estimated the number to be a little over 300 patients. I spoke to the quality management department right before this meeting to try to get an update on how that was going, and I don't have any numbers to report back to you, final numbers, but it's been going well. We've not had any issues or complaints from patients. You may recall that I told you the test was falsely reporting a low level, and that on repeat testing, a small percentage of patients did in fact have mildly elevated levels of this antibody to thyroglobulin. So we're getting the expected finding that we were told we would from the company. And again, all current tests are being done with the reagent that works properly, and our reporting is back to normal. Again, that was a little over 300 patients. Hopefully have a more accurate estimate of the numbers that were contacted and retested, and we've had no issues reported. Third thing I wanted to talk to you about is a very significant but small problem. There's a medicine called losartan. It's been around since 1995. It's used to treat high blood pressure. Very good medication, and we've been using it for many, many years. It was recently detected by the FDA that there is a small amount of impurity in certain lots made by different manufacturers of this medication. And because of this impurity, the FDA initiated what they call a voluntary recall. And the company that was cited for this was able to identify the lots of the medication that were distributed to different healthcare facilities across the nation, not just the Cherokee Nation, but across the nation. This is a nationwide recall. I spoke to Jeff Sanders right before the meeting that will likely be a little less than 100 patients that were involved or may have received this medication, and we've sent letters out to them by registered mail recommending that they, if they're one of these patients that has this medication, that they bring it back to the pharmacy and have it replaced. It's important to tell you that even though there is this small amount of impurity, it's considered more of a risk to abruptly stop the medication than to take it for a few more days until you get the correct medication. So I want to get that message out. And again, patients have been contacted by mail. Those letters went out last Friday. And again, I'll have more up-to-date, accurate numbers for you at the next meeting. Any questions about that?
Yes, go ahead, Councilor Taylor.
Do we have adequate supply of an alternate medication, or do we have adequate supply of a lot not affected by the recall to?
It's the latter. We have plenty of the unaffected medication. There was no interruption to be able to provide the medication to patients.
And we have replaced?
Yes, yes.
That's all I have.
Dr. Montgomery, on the thyroid testing, on the test, will the company cover the cost? Who's going to pay for the?
Great question. And yes, we have, through our lab billing people, identified a way to repeat the test at no cost to Cherokee Nation.
Okay. And on the medication, same thing?
I can't answer that for you right off the top of my head, but I assume that, again, if a patient brings back that medication, there's no cost to the patient. Will we be able to be reimbursed from the company for the effective lots? I'll ask Mr. Sanders after this meeting.
Is that a fair question?
Yeah, it's a very fair question. Very fair question. Yes.
Yes, Councilor Crittenden.
Dr. Montgomery, my phone's switching. I've lost your cell phone. Will you send that to me in an email?
I'd be glad to, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Hatfield.
Dr. Jones, if I went to Hastings Hospital today, I went to the emergency room, how many doctors do you have working in the ER? Or maybe the urgent care? I'm not familiar with that. How many doctors do you have? Would you say average?
I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head. I
Okay.
don't know the staffing model for today.
It's different for every day.
Every day is different, and during the day is different because we have urgent care attached to it.
Okay.
At night, when urgent care shuts down, obviously, we don't have as many providers on staff, but I couldn't tell you that number.
Okay.
That number.
Why would a patient wait, an elderly patient wait from 4 o'clock in the afternoon till 4 o'clock the next morning to get a room that's my mother, 91 years old.
check into it, but I can't tell you that specific off the top of my head.
It really doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I mean, it's already happened, but that's really hard. That's really difficult for our elderly people. It just so happened to my mother. And she's diabetic, and they did not, she asked for food. I think they gave her maybe 2 o'clock, I don't know, in the morning, maybe a chicken sandwich. But is there any way we could provide food for her? That's happened several times to several people. Probably, I guess I would say my family, that you can provide food or get them a sack lunch or an apple or something, because the last visit, I think there was a sandwich. But is there any way we could, like, and I know it's just not, it's not my mom, but this so happened to be my mother, and so.
All I can tell you is I'll check into it and find out. I don't get down into the weeds to that extent to knowing exactly what the procedures of each department is to that point, but I can check on that specific incident and see what happened.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Counselor Shambaugh, wait just a second. Were you through with your report?
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
The only other thing I wanted to bring up is that I wanted to call attention, because I've been criticized to a certain degree about not getting answering questions or not getting answers back to you, and I want to make sure that I have, in fact, answered all your questions that you've had up to this point. I try, if I don't have that answer for you off the top of my head, obviously I try to get it back to you within a week's time, week to 10 days, and in writing. I hope that you're sharing that information with your constituents. And I hope that I've answered all your questions. So if there's any questions that you have asked that I haven't been able to get back to you, please let me know. But to my knowledge, I think I've answered all the questions up till now and got them back to you in writing, where you can actually have a written document that shows the answer to those questions. So if that's not the case, please let me know. Okay. Now I'm done.
Okay. Counselor Shambaugh.
The clinic here in Tahlequah is it fully staffed with doctors?
The clinic, the new joint venture
Our old
building,
clinic.
the old clinic, we are at capacity for our the logistics that we have as far as rooms and being able to work efficiently. Do we have all the doctors we need? Absolutely not. That's why we're building the new facility, and as we move forward with that, we're going to have more providers in that facility. But you're in a situation where a lot of docs are working out of one room, and to hire someone else to put them in that environment is not efficient. So we're kind of at capacity in some situations because we don't have any more capacity to put more people in rooms.
So I guess to maybe summarize that, that would be, we have as many doctors as we can
fully function with at this point.
We have in our current facility.
In primary care and in
How about,
pediatrics. Now, there are some specialties that we obviously would love to have that we
Right.
don't have currently.
Talking about just straight, doctors.
Yeah.
How about nurses?
Nurses, the last document that I gave you, according to recruitment, was we were full. Now, I know we have some openings. We are full because we use PRN nurses and we use some temp nurses and things like that, but that we have all our shifts covered. Now, we are always recruiting and trying to fill those positions up, but we're not short-handed on because we don't have someone to fill a position. So
Now,
that's,
a temp nurse, what do you mean temp nurse?
we have a pool of nurses that we use to pull in when we have a shift that needs to be covered, or if we have someone quit abruptly or something like that, where we have shifts have to be covered. We can't go without shifts covered.
And that would be like would that be like a person that wanted to work part-time?
Mhm.
Or what about their, let's say their certification? Are they,
They're fully vetted and credentialed just like anybody that comes on board with us. The difference is and some of those people do end up becoming full-time employees with us if they choose to do that. But there are a group of providers out there that choose to just work 1 or 2 days a week, and that's what fits their lifestyle, and that's what they do, and we try to keep a pool of those available to us.
Okay.
We have a person that recruits for that pool full-time.
all right, thank you.
Counselor Lay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Doc, about 10 days ago, I met with kind of a chamber group up in Barnesville. And the dean of the School of OSU Medicine that's gonna be here for Tahlequah was up there. They gave a really nice PowerPoint presentation. I talked to him later and asked him about the contract, and he said it hasn't been signed yet. And I don't, we were among a whole group of people, and I didn't want to get too deep into it. Has
So
that contract with OSU been signed yet, or?
I'm not in that, that's not my place. I don't sign those contracts. That comes through other departments, but to my knowledge, the agreement is in place and we're moving forward.
A little bit of information. The initial contract for the affiliation was signed. We then signed, I believe, an MOU for what was remodel of the original building, and then when the decision was made to tear down and replace with a brand new building, there were additional revisions made to that, and it was re-signed, but it has been signed. Now, what I don't know if there's some type of long-term agreement with anything else. There's some security issues that are outstanding and some things like that, but the overall agreement has been signed, and it was amended when we decided to go with the complete building of the new building.
And security was one thing we talked about, by the way, while you're up. So OSU Tulsa and OSU Stillwater has their own security. Are we going to provide that, or through our marshals, or are they going to provide it?
So part of the issue is this is trust land, and when it comes to criminal jurisdiction, who has, who can arrest, who can do that type of thing, depending on if there's perpetrators. They are going to provide some security themselves. Our marshals will provide whatever, and it's just working that out so that everyone understands what private security can do on trust land, what marshals can do on trust land. I don't think it's an issue so much as there's some ongoing, and Lena Vaughn, who's a prosecutor in our office, and the Marshal Service are working with the OSU folks. They have scheduled or very recently had a meeting to work on that agreement. So it's
So
ongoing.
Everything's not worked out, is what I'm hearing.
Not completely, but the master agreement is signed.
And when was it signed?
I will get you that information. It was amended within the last.
And where is the master agreement? Has this council ever seen it?
You all saw the MOU, I believe. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I haven't, is the reason I'm asking. So I didn't know if it was passed around when I wasn't available, or I don't know. I've been here all the time, so I've never seen it.
I think there
The reason I'm
was
asking.
a resolution authorizing the chief to enter into, because this is a lease, because they're leasing space from us, but I can follow up on that. I mean, there was something that came through here. I don't think it was the agreement, because at the time it was authorizing the chief to enter into an agreement with OSU, I believe.
So if it's signed now, shouldn't we not see it? Is the question.
Can.
And so, who's building the building? We're building a brand new building. We decided not to do the rehab, so we're building a brand new building. Who's the contractor?
Same folks that are doing the clinic.
And with or without Tay-Road?
With, I mean,
Well,
it has to be. It's.
Right now, it's without Tay-Road. I don't know if you knew that or not.
It is contracted through Cherokee Nation Property Management. The new building is, because that's where the funding is coming from. I believe what you're talking about is that there was some special provision, and it's not that tarot doesn't apply. There was some forgiving of some fees, I believe, in the outpatient, and I do not know whether or not that applies to the school or not. It was a separate contract.
So Flintco has the contract. Is that what you're telling me?
If that's who's doing the clinic.
You don't know who's doing the 469,000 square foot building?
See lots of contracts. If it's Flintco, that's who's doing the school.
Okay. So are they doing it in conjunction with a Tay-Road contract in any way? In the new building that for OSU, which is a much smaller building. They should be able to do it because they've done it in the past. It's not being done now at 469,000 square foot clinic, is my understanding.
I'm not sure what the question in conjunction with the tarot contract is. I'm not trying to be obtuse, I'm not sure what you're asking me.
I understand. There's a lot of not sures going on with this process, right? That's why I'm asking questions. Okay, we're paying for the building. Is that correct? Does anybody know, shake your head yes or no? Or
I know you're gonna correct me. Cherokee Nation Businesses through Cherokee Nation Property Management is paying
Yep.
for the building.
Okay, we are paying for the building. And so are we leasing the building to OSU, or are we getting a lease back from them, or
We are,
how are we paying OSU to come and bring their instructors to do the teaching?
we are building and will own the building
Yep.
and will lease the space. I want to put lease in quotes because I don't believe that we are charging them. I think that is the incentive for them to come, that we build and provide the building and they bring their staff and students and program here. I do not believe that there is a cost to them for the building. I think that is the agreement. That was the incentive. But we do own, the property is ours, we own it, and it's on trust land.
And so how much are we paying OSU to teach students, or where's that contract at?
I do not believe that there is a monetary exchange in this, except for us providing the building.
How much does the building cost?
You're getting into questions that I don't know off the top of my
When you say
head.
there's no monetary exchange, there may be a $10 or $15 million building. And so, yeah, there's a lot of money there.
Right, but,
I'm just asking the questions because none of us have seen the contracts. We don't know what's going on.
yeah, I think they're available. I mean,
Well, bring them forward. Let us look at them.
I don't have those, but I think that they are
Well,
available.
who signs the contracts?
Chief or Doctor, well, back up, which ones? Cherokee Nation Property Management signs the construction contract because they're paying for that. So that's under them. The lease between OSU and the Cherokee Nation is signed by the chief.
Dr. Jones, do you know the answers to any of these questions?
All I know, we're building a building that will be our building, and we're going to maintain that building. We're going to maintain the grounds around that building. The agreement between OSU and Cherokee Nation is one of, like I said, I don't think there's no monetary exchange that I am aware of, and that we're going to be able to utilize their students in our health system as they train, and we're going to be a partner with them developing these students. So,
And those are the things that you should know, that I would expect you to at least have heard. And so I'm still curious about the construction of the building, if it's by Flint Code. Is it being done aligned with a Tayro or a Cherokee contractor?
that I can answer.
What Todd showed me was the resolution from February of 2018 authorizing, because we had to get approval for this lease from the BIA before we could enter into an agreement with OSU for them to be on the property. So the resolution through this group was to authorize the chief to enter into negotiations for a lease with the BIA for approval of a higher education medical facility.
I understand. But the council, have not seen that lease. Is that correct?
If you're telling me you haven't seen it, I believe you haven't seen
Okay.
it, and you all can request it.
I'd like to request that.
I don't know what my answer is going to be.
What is your answer?
A FOIA or a GRA.
You're so kind. Thank you.
You know, Counselor Lay, if it may help, I was told by Dr. Leroy Young, who is the Director of Native American Education for OSU, that if there are two students that apply and one is Native American, there is Native American preference for this medical school.
Thank you. Good deal.
Okay. Does anyone else? Yes, Counselor Crittenden.
Okay, I think I knew that non-natives, they're gonna be able to attend the school, right?
Provided there is not a Native American applicant who is qualified.
Okay, all right. And-
There is Native American preference in the school.
All right. Dr. Jones, I was just going back for a little bit on Wanda's question. Is there a time at Hastings when there's just one emergency room doctor?
Not that I'm aware of. Now, granted, there could be there's not a scheduled time, but there's just one. If something should happen and someone gets ill or has a family emergency or something like that, maybe that's a possibility. I don't know for sure.
And, you know, this is not something you created, Bill, John, me, anybody here. I remember when Hastings was over where the eye clinic is. And I remember as a little kid hearing about the wait times. Okay? And so, you know, that's nothing for me, but it's getting, seems to be kind of getting out of hand with the, you know, the wait times. And again, I'm not pointing fingers at you, but, you know, I remember when I first got on council, I called a meeting with some pretty big wigs, and everybody seemed to be okay with how things were, and but I've known of this problem for a long time. But what I'm not understanding, doctor, is when I take my kids over there, you might be able to help me. You know, you get back into the triage area, I guess you call it. Once you get to urgent care and hang that left and go through them doors, there's lots of little rooms where, you know, me and my daughter, we sit and wait in that little room. And, you know, I'm taking it there's other patients in the rest of the rooms.
Right.
And I'm not understanding we don't have room for more doctors, because what I've witnessed is that doctor don't have his desk in there or anything. He's just jumping from room to room, and I'm not understanding we don't have enough room for doctors. I mean, while this doctor's jumping in my room, why couldn't there be 2, 3, 4 other doctors in them other rooms? And, you know, you might be able to enlighten me on what you mean by we don't have the capacity for more.
Urgent care and primary care are two different.
Right. I'm really talking about the thing I hear is like the emergency room visits. And
That's
care.
urgent care and emergency
Right.
room. So one of the things that I've done since I've been here is I've met with the director of the emergency department, Dr. Hughes, and with Dr. Smallwood, and asked them to address the wait times, come up with a staffing proposal that would reduce wait times, and let's see what we can do to get there. So I've asked them to think outside the box, think outside of IHS models, look at private models, look at all different types of models, and come up with the best scenario to reduce wait times. So right now we're looking at budgets for next year. So everybody is talking about those things, and they have come up with a proposal that I'm going to sit down and look at their staffing, look at what we can do to increase efficiency, increase our ability to open up access and not have the wait times that seem to be a constant issue.
Not being in medical school, never was a chance for me to do that. But is it on the table? Tell me why we couldn't have more doctors over there in the urgent care. Is it just we can't find them or not enough room for them? But I'm not understanding the not enough room for them.
Well, one thing that you have to look at is for every provider, you have to have support staff around them. Okay, so we're working on those models because every department is different. The support staff needed for urgent care is different than the support staff needed for family practice or for pediatrics or whatever department you're looking at. So we're in the process of developing those models to know that when we hire this physician, that we have to hire XXXX to go with them. We can't just throw a person into it with no support because it does no good. It doesn't help the situation. There's only so much time and only so much that a person can do without the support staff around them. So we're working on all those things. We know that there's an issue with time. We know there's an issue with wait time, or I know that now, of course, because I'm in this role. And so we're addressing that as quickly as we can, and then those positions have to be budgeted. So that budget will come to this group at some point to add those positions. And we will add those positions where we need to, where we feel like we can make the biggest impact. We've already identified a lot of positions over in the new facility that we're adding, and we're filling some of those positions now. We're in that process of bringing on people that we need to bring on at this point, even before we're open, to get them trained, so when we do open, we're ready to go.
Put me out here like a doctor, so there's gotta be some nurses thrown in there, right?
True, and there's got to be,
I'm really talking about urgent care right now. But
and even more so there, because the turnover is quicker.
like this guy, he went to Job Corps, he's a great guy. He wrapped my daughter's arm. I mean, so he's considered
I don't know.
how many nurses needs to go with a doctor?
Well, it's different in different models, and it's different levels of nursing, because you have RN, you have LPN, you have nurse assistant, you have medical assistant, you have health registration specialist. You have different people at different levels that can only work to a certain level with their licensure, depending on what their level of training is. So we have to develop that. I don't know that anybody's looked at those type of staffing models, and we think that we can just throw docs into this
Because that's
situation.
That's who Carolyn was wanting to see. My little Samantha was wanting to see was a doctor. I mean, that's probably too simple of thinking, but that's what I'm thinking is, and I'm not understanding not enough room for them. I mean, because when we go over there and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I look around and there's lots of room. I mean, for a doctor and his staff, and I'm not doubting you a bit. I appreciate you, but
And the
man,
other
if we
two
could
pieces-
if a chief, you want to talk about a legacy, nobody's ever done it. But if they can change from what I heard as a little kid to what I'm still hearing after all the big bad casinos, they could do something with that wait time, and I think it has a lot to do with packing a few more doctors in there. I mean, they'd go down in history because that's what the people are wanting. But I know you're looking into it.
Well, and one of the things is you get into a mode where there's been a certain model followed for years and years and years and years, and I'm asking people to look outside of that model, to look outside the box. Let's figure out a better way to do it. There's better ways to do it. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's better ways to do it that are already being done. Let's find those ways and find a way to say yes and implement those. So that's what we're working on.
Looking, I got another, I'm sorry. That's why we're here though. Stillwell Dental Clinic and, you know, the new clinic. When's that gonna be? Hammers and everything going out and built?
So we are looking at a date to demolition the old building, and we're moving forward with a 2-story increased square footage building that's going in. One of the things you're going to have before you today is a resolution for a grant to help with some of that construction cost. We've been working on finalizing the plans. When first numbers that came back were over budget. I'll be frank with you, they were over budget. So I personally sent them back to the table and with the architects and those construction folks and said, we got to get in budget, and let's get it worked through this and get the things that we have to have, the things we see in the next 10 to 15 years that are going to be needed, and get us in budget. And one of the ways to get us in budget was this grant is going to allow us to do a few things that we maybe wouldn't have done necessarily before. It's a $2 million grant if we get it. It's matched by CMB, so it's going to help us to get some of those things that we were a little over budget on. So when those preliminary numbers came back, they were too high. So we had to start back at the drawing board and start working our way back from maybe not what we want, but what we need.
So that was before your time, but essentially, they closed down our dental clinic and different things before they knew they had the budget to build it, right?
Well, the reason they closed down the dental clinic, we had water issues,
Right.
and we had water roof leaking issues, and it created an environment that we wanted to be better safe than sorry.
So what are we looking at? Because I about voted for somebody else against me the other day talking about that dental clinic. So when can I tell the folks that we can start on this building?
My what I've been told is we're very close to having a contractor ready to tear the building down, the existing building down. Once that's done, then they'll start preparing the ground to come up out of the ground. What the date of start and finish, I don't have that date in front of me. I can't tell you that for sure.
Now, who holds the hot shot to that thing?
To getting it started,
Because I believe, I was gonna look back, but I believe I was told it was gonna be this summer. We're getting pretty close to that. Several months back, they told me that, but
I know that we've taken bids on moving temporary buildings in. We've looked at temporary parking. That's how close we are. They should be having some temporary buildings moving in very quickly within the next 30 days. Those will be set, and then we'll start moving some of the people that are still there and the part that's going to be tore down into those temporary buildings. Pharmacy is going to be one of those. We have to get those certifications done. We have to get the robot moved that does the refills. So there's some things that have to happen before we can actually start tearing it down. So that's where we're at right now. And I know that we're fully engaged in 90% into that process, because we've already got the bids back, and we've already been finalizing exactly where they're going, what dirt work's going to be required, is the helicopter going. There's a lot of things that go into that, because the helicopter comes in and lands. We want to make sure we're not going to cause any issues with that. So there's a lot of where our employees going to park when we start staging things for the construction. So,
and like I say, I want to be careful not to go. I know, starting to learn how things work around here. You can't hardly blame one person for anything. But boy, all these little details wasn't given to us when we were first talking about shipping everybody somewhere else. But please keep me in the know on that. And can you give me a month maybe starting?
I hope so.
I mean, a month.
We're trying to move as fast as we can.
What do you think?
know,
Head guy, what do you think? What month they'll be down there?
We've got a request in to help us with the demolition, and we're waiting for an answer from that, for some funding for that, and again, to get us in budget.
I don't know how long it takes to, buy dynamite or whatever you're gonna have to have, but is it going, you think this year?
Oh, yeah. I think you'll start seeing things in the next 30 days starting to move.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor Shambaugh.
I guess just to summarize from what I've listened to, when we've talked, and we've all heard it from the time we were growing up, just like everybody said about waiting times and things like that. But it sounds like we're really limited by our facilities on what we can do and what we can staff in the facilities we currently have. Is that correct?
In some cases, yes, and some of it is our own efficiencies that we're working through. But in many cases, yes, it is the facilities. And opening up when the joint venture building gets opened up, then that's going to increase our effectiveness, because each doc will have numerous rooms to work out of. In primary care, they're actually working out of the same room they're officing in some cases. So to turn a room over takes time, and that time is another patient that could be in a room. So,
well, I know when we took the tour of Jay, there was like a little horseshoe cubicles.
mm-hmm.
That's where the doctors went after they saw the patient, and they got on the computer and they did their business. And we were there, and we had like one doctor working there at that time, and so it was completely empty. There was nobody in these cubicles, nobody. It's my understanding now that it's full staff. So, there should be plenty of room for nurses and doctors. Is that the same type of thing that is at the emergency care? Do they have the same type of facility type where they have to go into the cubicles and they have to enter their emergency information from the patients? Is it the same basic type thing?
It's a little different from the standpoint of when that person comes in as an urgent care or in emergency care. A lot of times you don't have a good history. So they're having to run tests, they're having to trying to get history information, because they're not a patient that person usually sees. So it's starting from scratch. So it takes a lot more time to get to the point where you can know what kind of treatment that person needs. With allergies and all the things that they have to take into account before they actually treat that patient. So it's a little different model than what you're seeing out in the health clinics, because those clinics are typically seeing patients that are continuous care patients.
And one other quick question. On these temporary nurses that we hire, are these agency nurses?
In some cases.
If they weren't agency nurses,
We
what
try
would they-
to hire them into our own pool, but in some cases, they are agency
If they
nurses.
weren't agency nurses, what would they be? What would they category would they, what would they be?
PRN pool.
PRN?
Pool, as needed pool.
Okay.
And so, and when something like, they'll offer a shift and anyone in that pool can take that shift, so it's as needed.
But you offer that to, I guess, the agency nurses first?
Typically, we offer it to our own first before we go outside.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Counselor Walkinston.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Going back to the construction of this building, what was the amount of tariff fines that were forgiven?
For
The construction of the joint venture with OSU?
I don't have any knowledge of that. I don't deal with the construction of that. That would be a question you could ask probably facilities or through CMB, because we don't oversee the construction of that building.
So was there a change order that was done that piggybacked off of the construction off of the hospital
Change order for
to build the new OSU med school?
change order is typically done whenever we have an agreed to, for example, if we have a wall that needs to be moved because we've determined that the hallway, that wall or that door opens into a hallway or something like that, and we have to change the door from the right side to the left side. That's typically the change orders
So
that I see.
Was there a
I don't
bidding process?
see change orders from facilities or from a building going from hospital or going to being its own building. That would not be something that health had any oversight over.
Yeah, so was there a bidding process on this new OSU med school?
That would be a question for someone other than me.
Okay. Going back to Councilman Hatfield, you're talking about are your numbers were up and revenue were up, and so you said the reason there's still long wait times is because there's the facility, we're limited space in our facility for seeing patients.
That accounts for some of the wait times, yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's been an ongoing problem, and it is a problem. I don't know, I'm not a physician or anything, but just common sense thinks that if you were to increase your staff, somehow you'd be able to decrease the wait time for our people in our hospitals. Is that kind of what you think too?
I agree we need to increase our staff, but we have to have a reason for increasing our staff, and we can't just go and say, I would like to have 10 more staff, because we work on a budget, and that budget is approved by you guys every year. So with that budget, there's a certain amount of full-time employees, part-time employees, and PRN employees in that budget, and they're line itemed out. We don't have the ability to go in and just change things around. That's not in our purview. We submit those budgets, and we try to plan for a year in advance of what we're going to need. And now, if we come in and we find out that we just absolutely have to have something that we can't do without, then that's where budget modifications come in. But it's not something that we just make a decision and say, we want 20 more staff members and we hire them. That's not our, we don't
Have you guys
that
ever
ability.
tried to increase staff and see what it'd do on the waiting times?
Well, we're looking at different models right now. Like I said before, I'm just trying to get away from the standard model that we've always looked at, because obviously over the years it's not made any difference on how it's been staffed. So we're looking at different types of staffing models to see what would, because we don't need to invent the wheel. There's other people doing it. We just need to find out how they're doing it effectively, and set our models up accordingly.
Okay. Well, and on another note, thank you for the generator, but Bill Rogers, they're taking bids for those now, the generator. So appreciate you guys
And
getting
that's,
on that.
again, through facilities.
Yeah.
That would be a thing that they
That's all I
are
have.
handling.
Thank you. Thank you.
Counselor Buzzard.
Dr. Jones, thank you for this veterans chart. It's helpful. I noticed from one quarter it went from 2,130 to 8,747, so it's quite an increase. The other thing is, thank you for getting back to me on the physical therapy room there at the J Clinic. I was misinformed about what happened up there, I guess, but it certainly isn't big enough, and you probably know that. The other thing, I asked you about doing exit interviews about a doctor. You said it wasn't in your preview, that it was all up to HR. That kind of just didn't stick just right, because as an executive director of health, I would be interested in seeing if the exit interviews are done. Now, I know you can't make that doctor do an exit interview,
Right.
but I would certainly be checking to see if they did do them. So, anyway, I just want to bring that to your attention. But,
Well, I do want to say that we have an open door policy, and they can come and talk to us anytime they choose to do that. And we have had docs that have left that have come and talked to us. And, wanted us to know the reason and what's going on, and we never turn that away. But as far as the responsibility goes, the responsibility falls in that human resources department. We don't have the ability, to go out and they send them a letter, is my understanding, and invite them to do that. But we don't turn them away. We don't shy away from it. We want to know what's going on. And if there's something going on that we can fix, or if it's just a family issue. I've had someone recently that is moving for family issue, and doesn't want to really leave, but feels like for their family that's the best thing they need to do. So those things happen too, and there's good and bad.
and that's good that you know that. And I just thought, well, as an executive director of health, I would encourage anybody that's leaving to do an exit interview, so it only helps you and helps us. So.
It does, yeah.
Anyway, sometimes HR kind of falls down on the job and don't get that out, but I did appreciate the doctor writing a letter to all of his patients and telling them they were leaving and they were do this and see another provider and stuff like that. So he was a good doctor, but anyway, I just want to bring that.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very quickly, yes, Councilman.
Mr. Carey, after the meeting, could we meet? All right, thank you.
Okay, I know we're going to have to wrap this up quick. Yes, Dr. Jones, I'd like to ask, do we offer rides to dental clinics and to the emergency room?
We do have a transportation department that helps if people meet the qualifications for when they need assistance with transportation. But that goes through a dispatcher, and each facility has their own people that they employ for that, and have their own GSA vehicles that they employ for that. So, yes, but not everyone. There has to be qualifications met to use that service.
I'm sorry, I guess, I know if you were going to Hastings that you could get a ride. So you're saying if you were going to the dentist, to the dental clinic?
There is transportation available for those that meet those requirements. We have transportation that's running all over the 14 counties every day. So they try to coordinate those. We even have transportation where they help take someone to an appointment where we may have referred somebody out to a doc that we don't have inside our system. So we do have that available.
Okay, and to an emergency room, say you think you've broken your arm or something. I don't know, I can't think of something, but I know that that's a question.
That would probably be an ambulance. It wouldn't be us transporting. They'd have to call an ambulance, yeah, because we don't have, one thing about our transports, we don't have medical personnel.
Right.
If it's a situation where there's a risk, and we don't have security. So if the situation where there's a risk security, we don't do that.
This was a question calling to me. Real quickly, what specialties will we be staffing for in the new facility?
Well, there's a number of specialties that we're going to be recruiting for. What we'll be staffing for will be determined on what's available to us. Because, for example, ear, nose, and throat is something that is being recruited across the nation. So we would love to have ear, nose, and throat. If we can recruit somebody, we will do that. But we've got several things in line. But right now, we're really recruiting for those primary physician jobs that we need to open up access. So we've identified family practice, pediatrics, some things like that are our primary emphasis are on, and those are the ones we're recruiting for initially right now.
Okay, and what date in June will we be opening?
The date will be open. I don't have that date for you. We are searching for beneficial occupancy as of July 1st. So that's our goal right now. I've been told by construction that we're on pace for that. So that's what we're shooting for.
Okay.
We are already working on transitioning. We've got transition teams. We've got transition work groups going on each one of the departments, so that when we get ready to move, it's going to be a little bit smoother transition in how we're going to route patients through, and signage and all those things. So we're working on that currently.
Okay, thank you very much. I know we're gonna have to wrap this up, and so we're gonna have to switch off here. Is there any other old business?
I got to answer the question that was asked
Okay.
earlier. On the OSU Medical School building, it is the Cooper Flint Co. joint venture, and it is Taro.
Any other old business? New business, Keenan Duncan.
Yes, this is a resolution authorizing Cherokee Nation Health Services to apply for a small ambulatory program grant funding on behalf of Cherokee Nation to construct an ambulatory facility at the Wilma P. Mankiller Health Center site, and I put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
I'd like to be added as a sponsor.
Just need to go to full council.
And does this need to go to the full council? Yes. Okay, we'll take this to the full council. Can we take that to the full council tonight? Yes, we will. Okay. All those in favor, say aye. 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 Okay, thank you so much. Any other announcements? The next meeting will be June 10th?
Yes, I have an announcement.
Okay, and Councilor Dobbins.
I was at the OSU Med School, has a graduation ceremony. They had roughly 130 in this class, 14 native students in it, 7 of which were Cherokee. I might note that only 0.2% of native graduates, or of graduates this year, are native. 0.2%, that's less than 1%. And OSU has roughly about a 12% representation in their class. With our school, you mentioned something that we may ought to have the whoever's in charge of the admissions at the OSU School of Medicine at Cherokee Nation have someone here to explain the admissions process on our school, because I'm not sure if it's going to be native preference. I'm not sure that can be stated that way, but I think it can't be emphasized enough that all these students have to be qualified.
Exactly.
They have to have the didactics, the drive. You know, going to medical school is not an easy chore. You have to have the drive and the ability to do it. And I'm sure we're going to have a high level of qualifications for the medical school here in Tahlequah. So that might be a possible agenda item, to have whoever's in charge of the admissions in our med school here in Tahlequah kind of explain the admissions procedure for the school here. Because I'm sure it'll have a little different intricacies to it as opposed to the Tulsa school. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for sharing that, Councilor Dobbins. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.